This is Lightning Power Lunch, presented by Reef Rum on the Lightning Audio Network with Dave Mishkin and Greg Linnelli.
Well, it is controlled by the Lightning. Gensel gets to it, left circle into the left corner. Gensel behind the net, walks to the right circle, shoots, score! Jake Gensel! What was I just saying about icings? The Lightning make Utah pay for an unforced icing. It was a 50-50 face-off. Gensel jumped on the puck, though. Took it from the left circle to the left corner, went behind the net, walked it to the other side, didn't try the wraparound.
Just a good one draw by Tony and Pointer going to the net there to open up some space and just try to throw it on net and catch him off guard. So you take them as they come and you move on, and it's a big one for us.
Heck yeah. That's 5 in a row. Woo.
Quality win.
Bad goal.
It was a bad goal.
Looking back on it, that's a bad goal.
Yeah.
You got to make that save.
That's a short side, off the body and in.
Got to put it on net.
Mm-hmm.
Give credit to that. I want to get into, you and I discussed this in the post-game show, but I think it's worth repeating here on the show today about the 50-50 face-off wins. I think that happened on 2 goals, and that was big. You know, if the Lightning are going to struggle in the circle here until they figure this out, you've got to find other ways to win these if it's not just clean with your centerman. But just another good win. That's a good Utah team. I don't know if they make the playoffs. That's a good. Yeah, they were close last year.
Yeah,
That's
they
a good team.
finished 7 points out of a playoff spot, which, considering where they were when they were in Arizona, that's a huge improvement. You know, unrelated to anything else we have to talk about today.
Yeah,
I saw a stat. I think I saw it in the notes. It was on the Utah side of the notes that Andre Tourigny, their head coach, is the 4th longest tenured coach in the NHL. That was very surprising to me. In other words, with the same team. So Coop is first, of course. But it feels like Tourigny hasn't been there that long. I guess it just goes to show, A, there's a lot of job insecurity if you're a head coach in the NHL, and B, it illustrates how incredible the John Cooper run has been with the Lightning.
that's a great point.
But it was in the context of Tourigny has had his team improve by X number of points. I think it was at least 7 points every year that he's been there. So if they can improve 7 points from 89, we know they will get to 96 and certainly put themselves in a good position to be in the playoffs. I did not think Utah had its best game yesterday, and the Lightning had something to do with that. And I read the post-game clips from Utah as well, and they kind of felt like they didn't maybe have their best game. But that's why you play them, right? And the Lightning may have had an impact, but on the goal call you heard me talking about all these icings Utah had. Utah must have had close to 10 icings in that game. And that, I think, was the last one. And whatever it was, 8, 9, 10, the previous icings, many of them were unforced. Like, it was just a play that was offline. And as a result, the Lightning got an offensive zone faceoff, and until they scored what was the winning goal, they did nothing with those faceoffs. They either lost the faceoff or they won the faceoff, and nothing came of it. But that's playing with fire. The Lightning had a couple of icings right after Gensel's goal, and I was very concerned about that because Utah had a lot of ozone time, probably for about 5 minutes straight after the Gensel goal. So icings are not ideal. And if you're just gifting offensive zone faceoffs to the other team, you are playing with fire. And the last time they did it, they got burned. But that was just one example, I think, of where Utah felt that their game was a little bit off. And they credited the post-game comments I saw. They credited the Lightning.
They had 15 shots through 2 periods. I actually think we've seen
Utah, yeah.
Yeah, I think we actually seen the Lightning over this 5-game win streak where they've had some pretty impressive periods of holding the other team to single-digit shots.
Mm-hmm. And only 30 shot attempts through 40 minutes, too.
I mean, that part's impressive. I know the third period, and we can get into it, was a little different. But, I mean, you expected them to push. You know, I get that. But I think for the most part, partner, I mean, what a difference a couple of weeks makes. I mean, this Lightning team is playing better. And, again, another recurring theme for me, fourth line continues to do their job.
Yes,
and the
and
goaltending.
chipped in a goal, and they chipped in a goal again.
They did, and the goaltending has been solid.
Mm-hmm.
It really, I mean, and Johansson's been just, I think, what a moment. You know, it's funny. He's not. because I know off the top of my head there's already a couple of goaltenders who are going to represent Team Sweden in the Olympics. I get that.
Yeah.
But I feel like Johansson, if you say, could he be your third or fourth best goaltender at this point from Team Sweden?
Yeah.
Like,
depends how many they bring.
Yeah,
I mean, usually it's 3. I think
that's
for
what
the
I mean.
Olympics.
It's 3. I mean, he's not going to be your
Jacob
your first.
Markstrom is up there
For sure.
and he's a starter who plays a lot in the NHL for a good team this year.
Yes. But I mean, and I don't know how many Swedish goaltenders there are in the NHL right
Yeah,
now. That would be.
now you're making me think like
Jared, find him.
well, there's Gustafsson, right?
So those two would be.
Yeah.
If Sweden in the Olympics, it's going to be those two in some capacity.
You would think.
What I'm saying is Johansson, is he in the mix for at least if you're carrying 3? Why wouldn't he?
He's played very well. I think what's working against him is just limited work. That was his
that's
fourth
fine.
game. I mean, the Lightning have played 12, so he's played a third of the games. But as
But
the
he
back-to-backs start to become more spread out, and they will, with the Lightning ride Vasilevsky more. I really thought he would get a start on this trip. I didn't know if it would be the Utah game. Although I think I may have said on the show on Friday that I kind of thought it might be the Utah game.
I think you did.
Yeah.
And I think your analysis
But I remember
is pretty
saying I
spot on.
thought he was going to get a start on this trip, which has no back-to-backs. And we had a fan write in and post, well, Vasilevsky may get all of them because there are no back-to-backs. I'm like, well, they want Johansson to play fairly regularly here in that, not that he's playing every other game, but, they don't want him going, 2.5 weeks between starts, I think. And he's giving them very good goaltending, to your point.
Yeah. So those are two things that really stood out for me.
Yeah.
We can get into more of what you saw. We have questions coming in at Bolts Radio. Lightning have a very difficult couple of games coming up here. Colorado and Vegas, and even Washington coming back home. We can get into a little
Washington
bit as well.
is in last place in the Metropolitan Division. For what it's worth, I think every Eastern team is above Hockey 500. And the reason for that is we have a lot of overtime games at the start of the year. Colorado, to me, from what I've seen, they may be the best team in the NHL coming out of the gates. But they've lost 5 games in overtime. I think their record is 7-1-5, which, given their skill, is very curious. When you've got McKinnon in a 3-on-3, you've got Makar in a 3-on-3, you got Natchez in a 3-on-3, Landeskog. I mean, they have guys you would figure that would score for them in overtime or the shootout. It hasn't happened yet. Just think if they'd flipped just a few of those, they'd be much higher in the standings. But that is consistent with what we're seeing around the league, which is just a lot of close games. The Lightning themselves, how many one-goal games have the Lightning been in? I mean, yesterday was a one-goal game with an empty netter. So statistically, it's not a one-goal game. But it was a close game. It was tied in the third period. And we've had a lot of games go to overtime. So you're getting the extra point, and the losing team does not take a loss in the regulation loss category, which is why you got 16 teams in the East. I think all 16, I should confirm that. I think all 16 have more wins than regulation losses.
Yeah.
Because the losses are
Correct.
going into the overtime category. Yeah, every single team. I just looked. Boston is 7-7. So they're right there at Hockey 500. So that's the way it is right now. I don't think this is going to continue. I don't think we're going to see 16 teams in the East finish the regular season with essentially, if you're above Hockey 500, that means you have more points than games. Do I think that every team in the East is going to finish with 82 or more points? No. But it's still early enough that we're seeing this and it's unfolding this way. And the Lightning are one of these teams. They've been in a lot of close games too.
Yep. And they're starting to win them.
Yeah.
What did you let's get your thoughts on the game, what you took from it, and then we get some questions.
So I thought it was a very good defensive performance for the first 40 minutes. The Lightning did not impose their will as much on the other team in yesterday's game as we saw in some of the earlier games during the winning streak, but that is not a criticism. That is just the reality of hockey. You're not going to be able to write the script and dictate play decisively, which I really feel they've done through much of this stretch against the West. Honestly, they're playing 8 in a row against the West. They got 2 left, and they're 5-1 so far. Even the loss against Chicago, I thought the Lightning dictated play for long stretches. I didn't feel yesterday's game fell into that category, even though the Lightning did well to limit shots and shot attempts through 40 minutes. As we just talked about, 15 shots allowed, 5 were on the power play for Utah. So they only had 10 shots otherwise through 2 periods and only 30 attempts. That's pretty good. But it's not like the Lightning were really leaning on Utah that much either. So I kind of felt it was a bit of a low chance game. And what I was just saying about Utah with the icings, the Lightning had some icings too. So that game just took the flavor of a game in which, like we talked about how fast-paced the first period was for the Lightning when they played Dallas. We didn't really see that as much yesterday. But that's going to happen. And, did I think the Lightning were outplayed? Absolutely not. And I thought that, they handled, whenever Utah tried to throw something at them, they handled it pretty well. What we saw through the first 2 periods especially, when Utah was dangerous, it was off the rush. And if you heard the interview that I did with Rob Zettler, Zettler did with me after the first period, and that was after Lawson Krause had scored on a breakaway, he said they're an extremely dangerous rush team. And they came in tied for 4th in goals scored per game in the NHL. So we didn't see a lot of it, but what Utah got tended to be off the rush. And that includes on the power play. Their first 2 power plays, they went 0 for 3 in the game, but their first 2 power plays, they had 2 chances. 1 in each power play. Both were off the rush. Peterka in the first period power play, and then it was Keller off the rush. Got a one-timer in the slot on their second power play. So that is consistent with kind of how the Lightning pre-scouted them. And there were a couple of rush chances, but other than that, I didn't really think Utah did much until the third period. I'm kind of putting that in a separate category. The Lightning didn't generate a ton either. They may have generated a little bit more than Utah. I do want to address the Lightning's power play, which that has become a sore subject amongst the fans and maybe within the Lightning room too. They went 0 for 2 yesterday, and they didn't generate much after the first probably 15 seconds of their first power play. We'll get into that in a second. But the Lightning did generate enough. And you think about the goals that they scored, the Yanni Gourde goal was a grade A chance. There is no question. That was a very well-executed play by Girgensons, Gourde, and Lilleberg, who jumped in the play. We've seen him do this the last couple of games, and I think it's really helped the Lightning that he's been aggressive. And that was a terrific return feed to Gourde, kind of through a seam, and he had an open net. The Cirelli goal was, I'm not sure that was a grade A chance. That was a hell of a shot from Cirelli. And the goalie was screened a little bit. I talked about this at the time. Karel Vejmelka catches with the right hand, which puts him in the minority of goalies. Most goalies catch with the left hand, hold the stick with the right hand. So if you're a shooter, you're probably used to shooting to one side where the glove is, the other side where the blocker is. Vejmelka made a couple of glove saves, which on most other goalies would be on the blocker side, where, well, let's be honest, it's harder to make a save with the side where you're holding the stick. It just is. You can't catch the puck. You're holding the stick. I mean, you can do it, but, most goalies, I think, are able to erase more chances, understanding certain shots are going to get past them regardless. But the glove side, you can move it up and down. You can catch it. You can freeze it. So Vejmelka had his glove on the other side, and there were a couple of chances, including one from Dominic James, where he went on that side and Vejmelka was able to snare it. The Cirelli goal, though, went to the other side, and I wonder if Vejmelka had been catching with his other hand, even though he was screened and it was a shot high, if he might have caught that. It went over his stick and blocker. So it was a nice shot from Cirelli. The Lightning did enough to score. They didn't generate a ton of chances, but they generated enough. So I kind of liked where their game was at through 40 minutes in that, they were managing the game pretty well. They were getting some timely saves from Johansson. They were avoiding some of the costly turnovers that as Coop said, were adding risk to their game and feeding the other team's attack. So then we got into the third period, and it did not start well for the Lightning. It started in a 4-on-4, and they were kind of back on their heels. As you often say, Greg, the other team at some point is going to make a push. Here's Utah. They're down 1. They're probably not crazy about their first 40 minutes. They're like, okay, we got a period here. Let's push. I thought they pushed. And the Lightning had, I'll put it this way, it was an unnecessary defensive zone turnover by Victor Hedman that led to the tying goal. Now, when I watch the replay, there is a guy leaning on Hedman. Hedman is getting the puck on his forehand along the boards. There was a Utah player leaning on him a bit, but he really doesn't get a lot on the puck, and it's a fairly easy keep for Ian Cole, who had a very good game for Utah, and I think he was named the number 2 star in the building. And Cole is playing, he's a lefty defenseman. He's playing the right side. He didn't do that a lot, I think, the year he was with the Lightning, but he's enough of a veteran that I think he's done it. And he's doing it for Utah right now. He's playing with Oli Mata, generally. I mean, I think that they mixed up the D. I was curious if they played together in Pittsburgh. I mean, they were certainly there at the same time. Anyway, Cole blocks it and feeds it cross ice to Yamamoto, not the pitcher, the hockey player, who has been scratched. Right. So he was motivated to have a good game, and I thought he had a good game. He was shooting a lot. He got the puck. He's a righty, left side of the ice. He has a great look. He puts it in. It was a very nice finish. Now Utah has momentum, and the Lightning kind of had some bumps in the road over the next several minutes. Johansson had to make some tough saves. I remember there was one, I think, Carconi off the rush, cut in, another chance off the rush, cut in, got to the net. Johansson made a really big save there. The Lightning couldn't really execute up ice, and they got a much-needed break at the TV timeout, the first TV timeout. Coming out of that TV timeout, I thought the ice got leveled, and it was kind of not much happening for the next several minutes. We had some more icings on Utah, and then they got the winning goal. I do want to talk about the 2 faceoffs. I'll come back to that. I agree with you. Vejmelka probably wants that one back, but it went in. So the Lightning go up 3-2. They didn't have a great segment after that. They had some icings. They were not executing to get out of their own end. I remember first Cooley and then Paterka on the same shift. Both had chances, and Johansson stopped them. Paterka had the shot from the slot, and Johansson gloved it just before that and was after an icing. Cooley took it behind the net, kind of similar to the Gensel play, except he tried to wrap around, and Johansson made the save. But as we got closer to the finish line, I thought the Lightning recovered. I mean, if you look at the play-by-play, the last 3 minutes, Utah didn't have a shot on net. And so the Lightning locked it down pretty well at the end. They did well when Vejmelka went to the bench. The Lightning ran a 5-on-6, and they got the empty netter from Hagel late to seal it. So, look, as they say, was it a Picasso? If you love Picasso, you think this is a beautiful work of art? Probably not. But did they play well enough to win? Yes. Were they probably the better team yesterday? Yes. Did they have to deal with some adversity on the road, which is usually the case? Yes. Did they find the play in the third period of a tie game where earlier in the year the other team was finding the play? Yes. So all of that is extremely positive. I'll punt it back to you. We can get into the face-offs and the power plays the Lightning had, but I don't know if you had anything more to add.
No, I thought that was a bad goal on the Gensel goal. I think those are things in a pretty evenly played game that can turn the tide. I thought that did. You're going to get into the face-offs and being able to win with the wingers coming in. I thought that was a big deal. Mm-hmm. Credit Lilleberg for the pass to Gord, too. Let's give credit where credit's due. You know, there's been a lot of talk about Lilleberg, and maybe some of it's fair, maybe some of it's not.
If fans are still harping on, like, why is Lilleberg in the lineup and all of this, they aren't watching what's been happening in the last 4 to 5 games. Emil Lilleberg is playing really, really well. And some of it, I think, comes from being paired with Destu, who I thought it was not a game in which he had, like, a bunch of chances. I mean, he had a goal and an assist in the previous 2 games. And what did he play yesterday? 14-29 with 1 shot. I thought he was outstanding yesterday. He had some plays in his own end where he's going basically one-on-one against a Utah forward who's trying to do something, and he's erasing the guy and separating the guy from the puck. He did that multiple times yesterday. I love how he's coming out of his own end, so I really like where his game is at, but Lilleberg has played well. I mean, that's not even subjective. That is an objective truth. Emil Lilleberg is playing his best hockey of the year right now and has done so for the last few games. And part of that, included in that, is his willingness to jump in the play and create problems for the other team. In the game that they had against Dallas, if you recall, Ottinger made a save on him in the first period, but it was a grade A chance. Yesterday, he makes the pass to Gore. That was a big goal. Lightning never trailed after that goal was scored. And it came right after they'd killed a penalty, too. Anyway, I agree with you. It was a very nice play from Lilleberg.
Yeah, and then Ben Pierce, credit to him, he also talked about Douglas wasn't on the ice for much, but on the one goal screening in front, and he was a +1. So, again, we talk about what's his role going to be, partner, moving forward. And
still unknown.
I still think they're trying to figure that out, but they like him enough to keep him here, and that's all I can say,
well,
in terms of what he's going
they
to
have the spot, so they can keep him and use him when necessary. Remember, we were kind of trying to speculate about the lineup on Friday's show, and I said, knowing Coop, I think Destu is going to be in, and even if they hadn't been playing Utah, Destu, I think, would have been in. But agree. Destu had a terrific year in Utah. I mean, you look at his stats the year that he played for the Utah Grizzlies. They had 18 playoff games. He's a defenseman. He had 19 goals in the playoffs in 18 games. So clearly he was shooting the puck, which he can do very, very well. But we also wondered about Crozier, who didn't play. And I really thought, because it seemed like he was close, he would come in. And Douglas, who was a member of the Utah organization. So what the Lightning decided to do was go 12-6. They held Crozier out one more game. And he's going to play on the trip. In fact, I think he's going to be in on Tuesday. And if I were to wager a guess, we'll have the show tomorrow as the Lightning are going to be in Denver for the skate, although we're going to be off the air before the Lightning basically are taking the ice. But I would not be surprised to see Crozier in for Douglas and the Lightning going 11-7. What they did yesterday, though, was play the two guys with connections to Utah. And that is very John Cooper-esque. And yeah, Douglas was +1, but it was another game in which he played, 3 minutes and 1 second. So that's not really sustainable, but for now, that's the way the Lightning are doing it, and they're winning. So do I think Douglas is going to play against Colorado? Probably not. I think the Lightning are going to go with 7 defensemen, and I would look for Crozier to come in. But that's a little bit of a guess on my part.
When everybody's healthy, how many defensemen do they have currently right now on the active roster?
Well, I don't even know if they've activated Crozier
Let's
yet,
say Crozier is ready to rock and roll.
It'll be 8, yeah.
You got 8, partner, you got 8 legitimate NHL defensemen.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're not, would you agree, up to this point, and I understand it's a small sample size, but listen, you got to start somewhere, Stu is an NHLer.
Yeah, he is.
Okay. Crozier is an NHLer, correct? I mean, based off of, what we've seen. Lilleberg is an NHLer. Radish is an NHLer, whether, there are people who quibble with him or not. I mean, this is where, so there's like 3 options out there if you want to start talking about, well, we only want to keep maybe 7 defensemen on the roster, and this is what we want to do.
If John Cooper was not a coach very comfortable using 11-7, this may look a little different for the Lightning, but he is a coach that, I mean, he's gone long stretches using 11-7 when it makes sense to do so, and it may make sense to do so once Crozier
I think it's going to
is
have
able
to.
to play.
But do you feel like they're going to have to send somebody down, or one of those defensemen is not going to can't be on the roster? That's the question.
Well, no. I mean, they could have 13 forwards and 8 defensemen.
I mean,
I think this remaining question mark is the Nick Paul scenario, but it sounds like from what they're saying, Nick Paul is going to be day-to-day after they come back from the trip. So let's get through these next 2 games and see where things
they got options though.
Settle. They have options. They
really
for sure.
Go ahead. I didn't want to take more time away.
So the face-offs. Look, it was not a great night for the Lightning or a day in the circle again. They went 27-34. But I will point out, because you're absolutely right, it was Gensel who won both 50-50 face-offs, leading to goal 2 and goal 3. Goal 3, he got the puck and did it himself. Goal 2, he passes it back to Hedman. We actually kind of whiffed on the shot almost, but the puck came back to him. He threw it to Gensel, then to Cirelli. Cirelli shot it in. If you look at the play-by-play, they give that faceoff win to Utah. That is wrong. So as much as like the people who keep the stats are being audited for some stats they're keeping, like shots, which are constantly being edited during the game. We've gone into the reasons for that. There are people who are putting money down on shots or shot attempts or whatever it is. They have to make sure that it's accurate. There's no such, I don't believe that there is a line on faceoffs, but Barrett Hayton pulls the puck back. Gensel gets to it first. Like, he steps forward, he takes the puck. That's not a faceoff win for Utah. So I don't know if that's inexperience on the part of the Utah off-ice officials, because, I mean, maybe they work ECHL games. I don't know. That is a faceoff win for Cirelli. So as Cirelli finished 7-13, he actually went 8-12.
Yeah.
Because that should have been a faceoff win for him. But Phil talks about this all the time. Many faceoff wins are not clean wins. The ones that are not clean wins, kind of what we call 50-50 faceoffs, it goes to one team or the other, not based on the sometimes it's the centerman. Sometimes the centerman can actually get a 50-50 puck, but often it's the wingers coming in, and twice Gensel did it to help the Lightning gain control of the puck and eventually score. So your point is a very, very good one. The power play. So they had 2 chances. They finished with 4 shots. Those 4 shots, I'll tell you exactly when those 4 shots happen, because it's pretty easy for me to look it up. All right. Krause got his goal at 5:55, and then Yamamoto got a penalty at 9:21. Lightning won the faceoff. Here are the shots. So again, this is time elapsed. Penalty at 9:21. Shot number 1, 9:29. Shot 2, 9:29. Shot 3, 9:30. Shot 4, 9:31. So the Lightning took their 4 shots in a 2-second span, and the 4 shots were taken within 10 seconds of the power play starting. The rest of that power play, and then the entire second power play, they had no shots. So what did they do in that first power play at the beginning? They won the draw, and Victor Hedman shot the puck. It was a shot on net. Vejmelka made the save, and then he made the save on Hedman was a good save. The next 3 saves he made in succession, twice on Point and once on Hagel, were maybe his best saves of the entire game. So if not for Vejmelka's goaltending there, the Lightning would have scored on the power play. Once they didn't score, and they had a fair amount of offensive zone possession time for the rest of that power play and the second power play, which they got, which came in the second period.
Yeah.
It was the same thing that we've seen recently, let's say, which is possession, passing it around, and looking for something that's not there, and essentially killing the penalty for the penalty killers. So what was the difference between the first 10 seconds of the first power play, in which I will say they generated, for sure, 3 scoring chances, and the other 3 minutes and 50 seconds of their power play time? They shot the puck. They got a puck to the net. And they got chances. So, I mean, it seems fairly simple that would be a formula, but, I mean, they have to start doing it more, plain and simple. And maybe some of it is what the penalty kill unit is doing. They feel they can't get a shot through, but some of it is choice. Some of it is choice to try and direct a puck to the net, even if it's not a big bomb. Get it to a dangerous area.
Yeah.
We talked about Gensel taking a goal line extended to the net. We didn't really, I don't really remember him getting the puck in a position to do that a lot yesterday. What I do remember is circle to the point, to the other circle, back to the point, to the circle. You know, maybe a seam pass try that, you know, a stick got in the way, deflects out, and then you have to regroup. So more activity to the net, I think, would be a good place to start. But for the Lightning's power play to be, you know, in the bottom 5th or whatever it is of the NHL is certainly unusual. But they don't really have much mojo going on it right now.
That's a fair point. Tonight, enjoy some Reef Rum. Smooth, versatile, and now pouring at Benchmark International Arena. Order a Tropical Wave or a Lightning Mule and taste why fans are switching. Reef Rum is a premium craft Florida local rum built on authenticity, quality, and easy drinkability. Ask for a refund by name. Go Bolts. Enjoy responsibly. Should we get some questions?
Yeah.
Why don't we? Let's get to it. Is that Chris? I think so. He's got a fun name. How will Julian fit Paul Crozier upon their returns? We have 387,000K in cap space.
Well, if you're adding Crozier and Paul, somebody is going to need to go down or be removed from the NHL roster. I didn't really get the sense the Lightning were up against the cap. I know that they started the season with Nick Paul and LTIR, but they have cap room. So I confess, I haven't done a deep dive on Puckpedia to see that. But if you add both players, you're at 24. So somebody has to be taken off.
Thaw 345 says Dave Mishkin goals. Of course,
Well,
he
thank
does.
you, Thaw. I haven't had to thaw yet this year. We have not been in any really
No, you
cold
haven't.
weather
It's got-
cities. Even Denver, it's
Well, I was
the
gonna say,
coldest
what's
of the
Denver
three
gonna be?
cities. Yeah, I mean it's actually pretty
Nice.
I don't know if this is unseasonably warm for Denver, but I mean it's colder than Tampa. Don't get me wrong, but I have a run in my forecast. No pun intended.
Oh, that's not bad.
Later today,
That'll be
and
good,
I'll be able to go without a winter. Like I have
Nice.
the jacket. I don't need
Yeah.
the jacket.
Havel says, hey, guys, apart from the one play where Utah scored on a failed breakout attempt, it looked like Hedman's best game so far defensively. What do you think of his performance on Sunday?
Well, he made the mistake that led to the second goal. Maybe that's putting it a little harshly, but he didn't execute the play as well as it needed to be executed. So he does have his fingerprints on their second goal. But I thought the Lightning as a whole, I mean, if we're going to look at how they defended, I thought they defended pretty well.
Yeah.
Throughout the game yesterday.
I think Hedman still hasn't gotten to a level he's accustomed to this year. And I think when he does, that's going to give legs to the power play in some other areas. FKA 322, that was a solid win. Not much to complain about. We could be really amazing once our stars get their game going.
So FKA 322, what I will say is this. I did not think Kucherov looked quite as dynamic yesterday as he had prior to yesterday. But, I mean, if you look back at the games that he's played since he returned from his illness, he's been very dynamic.
Yeah.
I think Braden Point is frustrated. Braden Point is not getting the sorts of chances that he's used to getting other than on that power play when he had the couple of looks right at the top of the crease. But, I mean, if you're going to say, okay, your point about Hedman is a fair one. I mean, he is among the defense scoring leaders, though, because he's had a lot of assists at the start of the year, and he had another one. Did he have another one yesterday? Yes, he did on the Cirelli goal. But, I mean, Hagel and Cirelli have definitely elevated. Their games are going.
Right.
Gensel's game is going. I thought Kucherov wasn't as dynamic yesterday, but his game has been going. So that's where I would maybe take a little bit of an exception. I think the Lightning have not scored as many goals, and they got 4 yesterday, 3 plus the empty netter. And honestly, yesterday they generated fewer chances than they did in some of the games where they only scored 1 in regulation and then got a second goal in overtime. So they could have scored more if not for opposing goaltending prior to yesterday. I agree with you. Goaltenders are human. Just like Lindbaum took away a bunch of chances that the Lightning generated, as did Ottinger, as did Saros when the Lightning were playing in Nashville, at least until late in the game. Yesterday, Vemelka gave them one that maybe, 49 times out of 50 he stops. Maybe it's not that high, but, I mean, it was definitely a stoppable shot. So we said, eventually things will return to the mean. So as many goals the Lightning looked like they were going to score that got snatched away, they got one that maybe otherwise wouldn't have gone in yesterday. And it was a big goal.
Yeah, it was. And in terms of the stars collectively, and you can define that by a certain number if you want, is Anthony Cirelli considered a star? I don't know. For this team, I think he's a pretty special player. He's got 7 goals, on the year. He's playing well. I don't think they're all clicking yet, but I think they're better today than they were 2 weeks ago. Maybe Point is still, scuffling. And Hedman is still scuffling a little
Some of
bit.
that is tied to the power play, to your
Can
point,
be.
though.
It can be. But I think Hagel's starting to find another gear, right, partner? I mean, I think he's certainly working his way out of it. He's putting some points together, which is good. How many points does he have now? What is it, 4 straight? 5?
Well, he's on a 5-game point streak.
Yeah, so that's positive. I think Gensel's been pretty good this year consistently.
I think he has too. Yeah.
I think he's – so are they all clicking and playing at this elite level? No. But I think the best way I can answer that, FKA 322, they're better today than they were 2 weeks ago.
I agree with that. I actually would even go a little farther, as we say, out on the ledge. I think Cirelli and Hagel are playing extremely well, and I think Gensel is playing extremely well. And I think Kucherov took a little bit of a step back yesterday, but I mean his points will start to explode when the power play, say if the power play, but I think when the power play kind of kicks into a higher gear.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean,
but I think that if you look at his, whatever it was, 4 games, 5 games since coming back from illness, he was very dynamic. We said as much on the show.
Yeah. I agree with that wholeheartedly. Greg says, only drawback I can say about the recent games are all the no-look quick one-tap passes that get turned over all over the ice, and very clearly the power play. Yeah, I mean the passes. I mean John Cooper said
the no-look
tap.
Have they been doing that?
I mean,
maybe
maybe
I'm not remembering them.
Yeah, and maybe it hasn't gotten my attention as much as maybe early on. I will say what John Cooper said. What was it, a couple of games ago, partner, when he told the media, we've taken a lot of risk out of our game.
Yeah.
And I kind of agree with where they are right now from that perspective. Power play obviously is something that's not clicking yet. And we can give various reasons there, but you've got to
think. The penalty kill is.
Yeah, which
and
is
you've
great.
heard me talk about this in
You
the
have.
playoffs, but it also holds some truth in the regular season that it is very, very hard to have success in the playoffs if you have a subpar penalty kill. You can navigate through a subpar power play.
Unless you play the Florida Panthers.
But Florida,
Kucherov,
but the Lightning's penalty kill didn't do the job against Florida either, at least in the first
not.
and 5th games. They got
Special
scorched
teams.
in those games.
I
Yeah,
would
they
agree.
lost the special teams battle to Florida.
That's
the
the
fact
right way
that
to
the
put it.
Lightning's penalty kill is up around very close to, if not at 90%, has helped. So they're holding the other team generally off the board when the other team has a power play, and they are holding the other team often to 2 or less during this stretch of 5 straight wins.
Tampa Bay says, do you think Point will find his scoring mojo soon? He has 2 goals in 12 games and is a -9. Seems a little odd for his usual scoring. Is he playing through something or just in a rut?
He's not even really getting a lot of scoring chances. Now, some of that is he has done a lot of work in the power play. When he scores in the power play, he maybe gains confidence. And don't overlook the significance of confidence. I know we've heard Stamkos talk about confidence during the time that he was with the Lightning. That if you're a point producer or goal scorer, playing with confidence is a huge benefit. And if you don't have it, it can be an anchor, on your production. So Point has basically had no room on the power play from that bumper spot. If Kucherov is trying to get him the puck. Yesterday, when he had those 2 chances, that was different. There was a shot and a rebound, and he was there. So it wasn't like they were trying to pass him the puck. So I think a goal would help, definitely. But we have to believe it's not like, Braden Point stopped being Braden Point, during the offseason. He's a very reliable goal scorer and point producer. So I would expect that, it's probably just a slump, and he's going to break out of it. But I think the part that is probably disconcerting on top of the lack of production has been the lack of chances that he's gotten.
Mm-hmm.
You often hear players say, well, if I weren't getting my chances, I'd be worried if they're in a slump. Right now, Point's not really getting a lot of chances.
And where is he in the faceoff circle, too?
Well, he's well under
statistic.
50%. Yesterday, he went 9-7, so he did okay in the circle yesterday.
And that can weigh on a player, too. I mean, not only are you not putting up the points that you're typically accustomed to putting up, but you're also maybe struggling even more.
Yeah, he's at
the face-off circle.
43.6%, which is actually a little
That's
bit
low.
higher than where he was when we were checking earlier in the season.
I mean, look, is Braden Point a great face-off guy? No, he's at 48.8% in his career. I think you'd like to see that, obviously closer to 50 if you can. But sometimes that weighs on you too.
Mm-hmm.
So
the minus nine is very atypical for him too. I mean, he's usually
I think he's in a little bit of a rut. I mean, look, if he
Yeah.
was injured, I think they'd sit him and say, look, if you got something ailing you, go sit.
Yeah.
I just do. Chris says, go Bolts. And Greg S. wanted to write back and say, as always, guys, great work. Thank you. Very appreciated.
You know what? Because we had the fan ask about the cap situation. Let me look at Puckpedia while you take another question here and see if I can wrap my head around what's going on there.
Chris says, another great game by the Bolts, and happy JoJo is looking so sharp. Questions for Dave. You've talked about strong side, weak side face-offs and how that can impact winning a face-off. How much does having to be the first stick down in the D-zone affect winning the face-offs?
It's a benefit if you are the second stick down. So if you have to put your stick down first, you can't kind of time the dropping of the puck.
And you got more force coming down, right? In some ways.
Right.
That momentum.
Now, sometimes you hold your stick and it's not dropped. In other words, you're holding it like ready to swing it in a motion, and you kind of do a false start like a swimmer jumping off the starting blocks early, and then you'll get tossed. But there is an advantage for the player who puts his stick down second. I don't think it's as big of an advantage as, strong side, weak side.
Alan says the team is playing great. Power play needs to be cleaned up, but they will get there, getting more impressed every game with the GGH line. That's going to be the fourth line. Yeah, the fourth line has been really good.
They have been, yes.
It's been great to see.
All right, so the fan is right as I'm reading this. Current cap space for the Lightning, a little under $400,000. And Nick Paul makes over $3 million. So I confess I don't have the answer to that question. I was not under any kind of impression, though, that the Lightning are going to have to kind of make room financially to add Nick Paul. So we'll have to wait and see. For sure, though, once Crozier comes off IR, the Lightning are going to have to make an additional move.
They will have to make a move
when Paul is ready to come off.
Gotcha. That's why we have to dig, and we appreciate you guys participating because it always helps. Local Nomad, the Lightning's power play didn't convert yesterday, but they looked very dangerous. Their second chance, though, way too much passing.
Well, they looked dangerous for the first 10 seconds. We kind of touched on that of the first power play. After that, not so much.
Yeah. Let's see. Spectre says, Dave and Greg, who would be your odd man out on the roster with Nick Paul's status being elevated to day by the end of the road trip? James and Destu have continued to impress. Well, they have.
I have basically refused to answer this question just because I keep saying, like, we don't know what the roster is going to look like. There may be somebody hurt by the time Paul comes back, and also performance, right? So, it's a harder question to answer right now because the Lightning won 5 in a row and everyone's, doing pretty well.
Yep.
So I'm gonna defer to you on that one, Greg.
Yeah. We've kind of gone back and forth. I don't know who the odd man out is, but I think the way it's shaping up, unfortunately, this could be somebody goes down who does have options that doesn't have to clear waivers or trade. But let's put it this way. I would keep Crozier and Destu for sure in the lineup and at least be on the roster. And I think they've invested in Douglas. So I don't see him being somebody that they send down.
But the only other guy that they can send down as waiver exempt is James. And I don't think he's going anywhere.
I don't. But, I mean, boy, this gets into kind of the ugly side of it's really out of your control.
Yeah.
As a player. What do you do? That's why I think a trade maybe is there. Thomas says, what a difference 2 weeks has made. Love their defense. If they could get the power play going, this team is scary. I mean, they are. I think for the first time, they've got depth in the last couple of years, I should say, where I think James being brought up, once they settle into whatever role they want to settle into, and once Nick Paul comes back, I do think they're going to have 3 lines who can score.
Yeah.
I do. And I think the 4th line is set. You know, obviously injuries happen, partner, and, you know.
I think 3 things have happened in the last 2 weeks. The first is that the urgency level has gone up. They're just playing at a higher urgency level, consistently higher than they were at the start of the year. They had spurts at the start of the year, but they also had a lot of flat play at the start of the year. We really haven't seen that. And I'll go back to the Chicago game again. I mean, even in that game, they made some mistakes that hurt them. But their urgency level has been very, very high and consistently high. So I think that's one difference. The second difference, and 2 and 3 are, to me, kind of tied together. 3 players have added juice to the lineup. James, Destu, and Girgensons. So James and Destu came up. Girgensons was added off the injured list. That, at least for the forwards, set the lineup in a way where the Lightning have very much gotten in sync. Remember, we kept saying at the start of the year, they're just not in sync. They're out of sync. They're not executing.
Yeah.
You can play a lot faster when you were in sync. Passing the puck well. Making plays to get out of trouble. And that is also tied to urgency and being hard on pucks. So 2 and 3, to me, are the additions they made and getting in sync. So those are the 3 kind of pillars of the tripod, right? That really help the Lightning dictate play. They have had a higher urgency level, I think, than their opponent in just about every game. Going back to the Chicago game. I mean, people are talking to me like, boy, the Lightning are, what are they now, 5-1 against the West? I'm like, well, they're 5-1 against the West because their schedule turned to the West when they started playing better. It's not that the West is weaker than the East. I mean, a lot of people feel that may be untrue. The opposite is actually true. We talked about the quality of the opponents that they've seen. Anaheim is a legit team. They just beat New Jersey yesterday. Yeah. They beat Detroit. I mean, they're home now, but I think most people feel that, Dallas and Vegas are very, very high-end teams. Utah had not lost at home. So, I mean, the Lightning are beating good teams, but they are outplaying these teams. Yesterday it was more of, on the edges, but I thought that they outplayed Utah and they were deserving of the win. So it's not so much that they're 5-1 against the West. They're 5-1 in their last 6 because they're playing a lot better. Why are they playing a lot better? Those 3 things I mentioned.
Chris wants to follow up real quick, partner. He says, both Paul and Crozier already count on the cap. IR gets you no relief, which is what Crozier is on. Paul is on long-term IR, which still has the salary count against the cap, but allows you to go over the cap by the player's salary amount. If we were over the cap, Paul coming back would be required someone to be sent down. But since we are under, him coming back changes nothing.
Yeah, thank you, Chris, for the clarification on that. Yes.
Get it, man.
So they have $300 and some odd $1,000, a little under $400,000 with Paul included. So they will actually get a little bit more once they add Paul and send somebody down, unless that somebody goes on IR, which is possible.
Stephanie, they seem to have improved defensively, and that is with Crozier in the lineup, they can only get better.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to Crozier coming back.
He's got that swag.
He can skate. I mean, the Lightning have actually played the Avalanche pretty well overall. Really, since the Avs beat the Lightning in the Cup final, the Lightning have played the Avs really well. They had a very impressive win here in Denver last year. They've had some lopsided wins at home over Colorado, which, I mean, those are unusual.
Yeah.
But I think part of it is that Colorado can skate so well, and the Lightning have been able to match the skating. And so Crozier can skate. I think Crozier is a very good fit. It'll be interesting, though, because he hasn't really played. He hasn't played in a game since he got injured, and you're coming back if he comes back at altitude, which would be another vote for 7 defensemen tomorrow.
Sure. It makes sense. Let me get to more questions. Timothy says, power play is killing off the penalty themselves. Way too pass happy. Someone needs to shoot.
No, it's kind of what we talked about. Look, it's way easier from up in the press box, though. I mean, the players are trying to read what's happening, but maybe it's just a little bit of a mindset shift.
Could be. Chris says, JoJo in nets. He was very good.
I don't often get a chance to talk to the goalie after a win. First of all, I don't do the interviews when we're at home. Eric does after a win. On the road, usually I'm getting a non-goalie, but I was glad that I got Johansson on yesterday. That's one of the first interviews I've done with him live on the air.
Yeah. He's pretty solid, man. That's been a tremendous find. You know, we kind of talk about backup goaltenders and the importance of those guys, but man, you know, if you don't have a good one, you got to ride your top guy too much.
I want to share just a story about an interaction I had with Utah's radio guy. Mike Folta is his name. So he came from the minors when Utah arrived last year. So he was their hire last year. So he's in his second year, and we met last year. I didn't know him when he was in the minors because he arrived after I had left. So I saw him. He like clued me into where I could get coffee during the intermission. So he told me last year, dude, he reminded me, he's like, yeah, you just go down here. It's like a kind of it's almost like the Chase, what they used to call the Chase Club, now the Mark, right? Like you need to have access, but he's like, you have your press pass, just walk in there and get coffee. Because there's no like real press box at the Delta Center. Actually, my spot is where the visiting radio for NBA is. So I'm kind of halfway up. Anyway, so he pointed this out. So I went down for coffee after the second period, and he was there too. So he's like, that Dominic James can play. I mean, he's just seen him for 2 periods. And we chatted a little bit before the game. But for the opposing broadcaster to watch 2 periods and make that assessment when James had no points, he was actually out on the ice for the first goal against, which wasn't really his fault, but that's kind of what we're getting at. Like, people can see. They can see that this guy has it. Whatever it is, he's got it. And maybe that was because he had that chance. I talked about Vejmelka made a good glove save on him. Like, he's been a little bit snake bitten and probably should have a goal and a point at least, whether it's a goal or an assist or whatever at this point. But he should just keep on going. He did okay in the circle yesterday, too, 4-3. So the guy who struggled the most was Cirelli. But as I said, Cirelli got robbed of a face-off win that they gave to Barrett Hayton.
Mark says, where would you guys slot in Nick Paul when he's ready to come back, and who comes out?
Yeah, we're getting some of these questions. Either they're not hearing your answer in this case, or those questions were posed before we went on the air.
That was early. That was about 20 minutes ago, probably.
Okay.
We're getting to so many.
Well, thanks for all the questions.
So I do think it's interesting with Paul. Does he come back as a centerman or a winger?
Mm-hmm.
I do think
he's
a min.
The open spot in the lineup, certainly when they go 11-7, is on the Cirelli-Hagel line. You have advocated for actually James going on that line and playing wing.
Yes.
We'll see.
I have. But they may want to ease Paul into things, and do you have him just take all the responsibilities as being a centerman, albeit on a third line, or would you ease him in and have him play wing?
Yeah.
I don't know.
The ease him in part is fair because, not only has he missed the start of the season, he missed all of training camp.
Yeah. And then maybe do you let James run with it as your centerman on the third line? I don't know. It's something to throw around. Steve says Lilleberg is good. Chucky D is playing great. Happy with our young defenseman. Our top line is not quite clicking yet. That's fair. I mean, it hasn't. But they've won 5 in a row.
Right.
Sign of a good team. Let's see here. Do? Will high price -9 Braden Point ever be a plus player again? This lack of defense isn't just this year. I mean, come on. Will he ever be a plus player again? I mean, like.
All right. I'm going to
I don't
actually
know
go and look up his year by year. Let's not be, as Greg often says, a prisoner of the moment.
While you're looking that up, Thomas also says, where would you rate Point up to now? Also, do you think they should try someone other than Bjorkstrand on power play 1?
Well, they have rotated. I mean, Hagel was on there actually for a portion of one of the power plays yesterday. What did Hagel play on power play? Hagel played 2:55 on the power play. Bjorkstrand played 21 seconds. So that tells you a little something. And Sorelli only played 18 seconds. So they actually went to another unit with Hagel on that top unit. So here are Braden Point's plus-minus stats, if that's what the fan is focused on. The one outlier year was 2 years ago when the Lightning had a bad defensive year. That was why we saw all the changes with McDonough and Gensel, and they made significant moves. But it wasn't only Point. That was a year where the Lightning scored a lot but gave up a lot. So last year, Braden Point had 42 goals, 16 power play goals, and was plus 17. So if you're basing on what he did last year, he was not a minus player.
Come on,
plus
Dave.
17 is very, very good. The year before, he had 46 goals. 15 of the power play was minus 16. But that was not the worst minus on the team. Going back a few years before that, +2, -5, +2, and then, earlier in his career, we saw +28, +27, +18. So the most recent year that we have to go by, where, mostly he was playing with Kucherov and Gensel, Braden Point was not just +2. I mean, he was +17. So I do not think that this is if he had 6 years in a row of -5 or worse into the double digits, that would be one thing. That is not what we see. We see one outlier year where the Lightning as a team struggled defensively and gave up too many goals.
He'll be a plus player again.
I think we're in agreement that he needs to turn it up.
Yeah.
But
Brendan says, Yanni has really sparked the Lightning's bottom 6. Have you noticed his influence rubbing off the rest of the lineup?
Well, it does, but I will say, and Yanni would probably agree, if we asked him, it's not just him, it's Gergensons and Holmberg, the three of them together. Let's not forget, when the Lightning had that 4-game road trip before Gergensons came back, it was Gord, Holmberg, and Bjorkstrand, and they were doing very well. I actually think Gergensons complements the line even better just because Bjorkstrand is just a different sort of player, but Gord, Holmberg, and Gergensons, and they even say it, they all play the game the same way. They provide energy for the rest of the lineup. So the simple answer to the question is yes, but I think it's not only Gord, it's his line mates as well.
All right, it's going to wrap it up. Still a lot of questions coming in. Please do. We will break it all down, and we'll be getting ready for the game tomorrow, partner, noon to 1.
Yes.
And our show will be
We
on.
keep saying this is going to be a tough test. I do believe this is going to be a tough test. Yeah. And
I think the Lightning will be ready, though.
The Lightning are playing at the level that they're going to need to play at to deal with the Avalanche. And look, it's possible one of these teams, and maybe both of them, will have an off night. I mean, we kind of saw that a little bit yesterday. I'm not sure either team was necessarily clicking on all cylinders. The Lightning just clicked on a few more cylinders than Utah, and they leaned on their bedrock of kind of limiting chances, which helped them. Colorado was going to get chances. And there's just no way around it. When you got McKinnon and Makar, there are two Makars now. His younger brother got called up. I don't know if he's still up. Natchez, Landeskog. I mean, they have Nelson always plays well against the Lightning. He's a member of their team now. I mean, they have a very, very good team. Arturi Lehkonen. So they are probably going to get some looks. Let's see if the Lightning can play at the level, though, that they've established over the winning streak. And I think if they do that, they'll give themselves a chance to get some points out of the game tomorrow. You had said heading into the trip, it's like you really want to get that first one.
Yes.
You get that one in the bank.
Let's go.
I don't think that you said house money because the Lightning still
I
want to
did.
get. All right, so you did say. I would not say house money because if the Lightning come home with
Sure.
only 2 points, it will be a disappointing trip. They want to come home with 4 or more. So they need at least one more win in the next 2 or get to 4, however you do it. That's John Cooper's standard. But that was a big 2 points to start off the trip on a good note, and we'll see if they can add to it tomorrow.
Partner, great job.
Yeah, I'll
Do it
be
again
at Ball
tomorrow.
Arena
Yeah.
for the morning skate
Cool.
tomorrow.
Get those questions in at Bolts Radio. Thanks to Steve Versnick and Jared Johnson, who did a great job filling in for Eric yesterday during the broadcast. We appreciate that. I am Greg Linnelli. You've been listening to Power Lunch on Lightning Radio.